Your global reputation is such that ex-American President Nixon has said that at another time and place, you would have achieved the world stature of Winston Churchill, Gladstone, and Disraeli. However, what I remember most clearly was in 1991, you said in an interview that your place in history was a small place and that it would not even be a footnote in this world. Having contributed so much to our country over the past 50 years, I would like to know if you had to choose one thing to be remembered for, what would it be? And I would like to know as well, how would you like to be remembered in the future? Thank you.
In all honesty, I can tell you that I've never thought about that. My job is to get what I'm doing done well. My motto in life is, if you have decided to do something, then do it well, or don't do it at all. So whatever I do, I try to achieve and achieve it at a high level. How will I be remembered? When you are dead, obituaries are settled by editors, and they have prepared these obituaries. They are done by people younger than you, and they collect all kinds of anecdotes and they have them in reserve. So the day you are dead, the next day you have the obituary. Otherwise, you've got no time to. That's what all you.
It's true.
But that's ephemeral. Reputations are finally decided 20, 30, 40 years after you're dead. When historians and students research your life, research your work, your documents, the things you decided on, and then there's a revision of what the man was worth. So, you take China. The great man, of course, is Mao Zedong, and his picture is still at Tiananmen. But he was a great man in liberating China. In building China, he nearly destroyed it because he was a romantic and he believed in constant revolution to throw up a next generation as revolutionary as his own. So you know what happened in the Cultural Revolution, which of course it was not only just to have leaders thrown up, but at the same time to get rid of leaders who were blocking him. The man who built China is Deng Xiaoping. And let me give you this anecdote and why he said, learn from Singapore. He came here in November of 1978, having stopped in Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, and then Singapore to persuade us to form a group that will fight the Vietnamese who are going to attack Cambodia. And he said, that's the Russian Cuba of the Far East. I'll cut the long story short. I mean, that doesn't matter. But he saw, before he came, he thought, Singapore was being called a lackey of America. And I'm a running dog of the Americans and the British. So what he saw here was an eye-opener. We were prosperous, we were green, we were clean, and every person owned his own flat. So he spent his 3 days here and asked, how do you do this? So we said CPF, employment, training, education. So he discovered that we have many foreign companies, multinationals, who use up our manpower, train them, and they generated this income and wealth, and we were able to do all this. That was November. In December, he went back to China and says, "Da Kaiman, open the doors." And he named 12 seaside cities facing the Pacific for the purpose. And it succeeded, including Shenzhen. Then others were opposing him. The old guard says, this is the way you lose control of the country because there are so many employers. In the old days, under communist rule, there's only one employer, that's the government. You fall foul of the government, your hukou. Hukou is your registration card, you get your rations, everything from it. You're done for. So once you have a multiplicity of employers, you've lost that control because you can go from one employer to the other. So they opposed him. So he went down in 1992 to Shenzhen. I had told him that night, after dinner. He looked at me and said, I came to Singapore in the 1920s on my way to Marseilles. I was going to work there and learn from the French. It was a lousy place. I congratulate you. It's a nice city. It's a garden city. So I looked at him and said, we are the descendants of the landless peasants. Not the scholars, not the poets, not the people with the artistic and other talents. You have them. Whatever we can do, you will do better. He did not reply. He looked at me, went back to his food. In 1992, 14 years later, when they were blocking him, he went down to Shenzhen and said, open up, learn from the rest of the world. And most important, learn from Singapore. Because it's got good management and discipline. And thereafter, hundreds of delegations came with cameras and camcorders to learn from us. So I decided, no, you don't learn by visiting a place for a few days and taking pictures of it. So I said, look, if you really want to learn from us, we start a project in Suzhou. And we'll show you how we plan, how we build, how we eventually have an integrated city. And today is an icon in China. Mm-hmm. And Singapore is known for it. But he built China. If he had not reversed course, China would have imploded just like the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm.